What's up, guys? Trist here for VGA More, and I'm back this time to discuss a new console with you guys, something a little different, something I don't think I've busted out before. I recently got a new system given to me as a gift, and it's made by a company called AT Games. Now, if you're not familiar with them, now it seems like they have made a living off of making retro, like little retro gaming consoles. So they've got like a Atari flashback out there that's got an Atari system with 20-30 games or something like that in it. Apparently they've done that for like Coleco and a couple other companies. One I got today is the Sega Genesis model right there. Classic game console made by AT Games, like I said. Right off the bat, this thing is pretty small, not much to it. Let's see here. So it's not much bigger than the actual cartridge of a game. If you look at it like there, I mean, this thing is barely wider than the cartridge itself. And this is actually Streets of Rage 2, my own personal copy from a kid. I recently found it in the garage. Looks like we bought it from Blockbuster in 1994. Look at that. I'll have to ask my dad if he remembers buying that. Let's see here. Moving on. With the console, you get a couple of items in the box. You've got a power cord. It kind of looks like something that would come with your cell phone. You got that. And it comes with a little AV cord that will plug in right there. I think everyone's seen one of those, so I'm not going to bother pulling that out of my TV. That's where the power plug goes. Now, as far as controllers go, it comes with two wireless controllers, and they look like that. They're not officially Sega licensed, obviously. I mean, this thing's not made by Sega. Now, as far as wireless goes, they're not wireless like your traditional Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 controller. No, these are wireless like your remote control for your TV. You know, you press the button, it sends a signal, and you gotta have line of sight. They gotta be able to see each other in order for it to, you know, register the movement. So, if you get too far away, or if somebody walks like in between you and the console, it might not register what you're doing. The other thing is if you start pointing your controller up a little bit, like you want to play like this, it's not going to register what you're doing either. So you can't move around. You know, you can't be one of those people when you jump, you go like that, or you're going to kill yourself. On top of that, so you get two of these, and they're that kind of wireless, so obviously they're not the best. The build quality is okay. This is not a good cross though. This thing's really loose and slippery. The buttons are decent. Other than that, it takes two AAA batteries, and to get to them, you actually have to take that little screw out right there, which is like super weird and annoying. I'm probably just gonna tape this down in the future so I don't have to keep taking that screw out. So that's what's up with the controllers. Now, despite these controllers sucking, AT Games did do something I like with this little thing, which is they added two controller ports to the front, so you can take your classic Genesis controller, or I think even your Saturn 6-button controller, or the Genesis one, and you can plug them in and play that way, which that's what I highly recommend. That's going to be the best way to play these games on here. So, now the first problem I had up there, like I said, was the controllers, but beyond that, I want to talk about how this thing actually emulates games. So, first off, if you're going to play it, try to play it on an older CRT TV, because it's going to look way better, the colors are going to be truer, and you're going to have a lot less lag. So when I first hooked this thing up, we hooked it up to a bigger, 40-inch flat screen TV, or, pretty much a newer TV. And the games weren't unplayable, but they were pretty hard to play. Some of them, there was some input lag, and it just made the games not that fun. And I was kind of bummed out. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go talk about this thing. I'm totally going to rag on it the whole time. I hate it. But I took it into my little VGA workspace here, and we hooked it up to the CRT TV, started playing some games, and I realized that, hey, this thing is fun, and it does have some redeeming qualities to it. You just gotta kind of dig deep. So, like right off the bat, when you plug it in, if you're not paying attention, the sound quality is the first thing you're gonna notice. Now you're playing Sonic 2. You've probably heard that music a million times, like I have. You know, when I was a kid, I actually had a Genesis instead of a Super Nintendo, so I played the shit out of Sonic. I didn't have Mario for Super Nintendo. I had Mario for NES, but that was a whole other story. So I'm familiar with Sonic the Hedgehog and a bunch of other Genesis games, and the way they're emulated on this thing, as far as like playing the game goes, fine. As far as sound goes, man, it's tough on the ears. Some of the sounds sound really screechy and just weird, and some of the music is like 2 or 3 just tones off. It's super weird to hear, and it's not too bad, except for the fact that, like I said, some of the emulation sounds are just really screechy and it hurts your ears. Now, I know the Genesis had a pretty unique sound processor, and in order for them to emulate something like that on something like this, they're not going to go out and find the chip like that and put it in here and waste that extra money. They have to do a software side. So this is probably some kind of like Android-based thing, and the fact that the sound is that horrible, whoever did the software writing for this, you know, probably not the best programmers, but I mean, they did do a serviceable job. It does work. You can play the games on it. There's 40 actual Genesis games. You got a pretty decent amount of games on here. Let me see. Some of the games included are Altered Beast, Comic Zone, Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3, Sonic 1, 2, Knuckles, 3D Blast, Shinobi 3, Vector Man 1 and 2, and a bunch of other super decent games. So a lot of those games that I just named are, you know, loved by a ton of people. So those are all good. Most of them are extremely playable, like I said, and the large number of the actual Genesis games included is actually probably like one of the largest selling points. I know that's probably obvious, but I had to say it. Okay, so I gotta say this though. One of the worst things about this thing, and one of the weirdest things, so they added Phantasy Star, a couple of the Phantasy Star games, right? And they're RPGs, you know, they take many hours to play, but there's no save feature on this thing. You go to save the game, in the game, it doesn't save. You go back to play it, there's no save file. Now, you think, okay, maybe there's no save file in the emulation, maybe if I put a game in, you know, start playing and save it. No, there's no saving at all. So that's a huge oversight. I'm not sure how they're selling this thing like without any kind of saves at all in any of the games. That's crazy to me. So that's probably the worst thing about it, is that you can't save in any of the games. There's no saving any progress, and there wasn't a ton of games that saved it back then, but it does make a difference. So that's kind of crazy. It's like, overall, I wouldn't say go out and buy this thing right now. It's missing a lot of features that, depending on like the level of user you are, you may or may not miss. Like, you know, if you're a power user, you're definitely, you know, you're someone, you're trying to play tons of different games, you want to hook up a 32X to it or something like that, you know, you can't do that. You can't save your games. There's a lot of things that you're just not going to be able to do. But on the opposite spectrum, you know, say you're somebody who had one of these as a kid, you had some memories playing Sonic 2 and a few other games like I did. It is serviceable. It is good enough for you to have some fun and remember for a few hours. If you end up receiving one of these as a gift, like during this holiday season, like I said, don't just write it off. Give it a try. You'll probably have some fun, but don't expect 100% Sega Genesis time. You know, it's not going to be exactly the same. So, yeah, I would say I'd give it about, maybe out of 100, maybe a 65 or 70. And that's my review for the Sega Genesis.